For almost 12 years, I've walked the floors of the ICU at Mercy General Hospital as a nurse. My name is Rachel Torres. I've been a witness to life's final moments, held hands as people took their last breath, and offered what little comfort I could to grieving families. Death. It became a familiar part of my job, something I learned to face without fear. At least, that's what I used to think. The night shift, the graveyard shift, has always been my preference. From 11 at night until 7 in the morning, a strange sort of peace settles over the ICU. It's just me, 2 other nurses, and the few souls resting in our care. We dim the lights, we speak in whispers. It's a quiet, solemn routine. But 3 months ago, that peace was shattered. It started on a Tuesday night, nothing special about it. I was doing my rounds, checking vitals, adjusting IVs. We had 6 patients, Mrs. Patterson in bed 1, Mr. Yao in bed 3, the usual flow of critical care. I was back at the nurse's station, charting, when the old intercom system crackled. At first, I dismissed it as static. It's an ancient system, always hissing and popping. But then I heard it. A man's voice, soft, almost sad. Rachel. Just my name. I checked the call light board. Nothing. Not a single light was on. I keyed the general response button. "This is Rachel. Which room needs assistance?" The line was dead silent. I waited. 10 seconds later, the voice came back. "Rachel, I'm cold." A chill that had nothing to do with the hospital's air conditioning crawled up my arms. The voice felt familiar, but I just couldn't place it. I checked the board again, still blank. I radioed Sandra, another nurse on duty. "Hey, are you messing with the intercom?" Her reply was instant. "No. Why? I'm in the supply room." "Someone just called my name through it," I told her. "Probably one of the patients," she said. "Check the rooms." So I did. I walked into every single occupied room. All 6 patients were either sound asleep or too sedated to have called anyone. Mrs. Patterson was snoring lightly. Mr. Yao was completely unconscious. Not a single call button had been pressed. I returned to the station, my mind racing. And then, the intercom crackled again. "Rachel, why didn't you save me?" This time I knew the voice. My blood ran cold. It was Mr. Hendricks. Thomas Hendricks. 73 years old, cardiac arrest. He had died 2 weeks earlier on my shift. I had done chest compressions for 40 minutes, my arms screaming, while the doctors tried everything. But we lost him. I stood there frozen, just staring at the intercom speaker. It had to be a hallucination. I'd been pulling double shifts, I was exhausted. Sleep deprivation plays tricks on you. That's what I told myself. Then the voice came again, more insistent this time. "Rachel, I'm still in room 412. Come see me." Room 412. That was Mr. Hendricks's room. It was empty now, cleaned and waiting for the next admission. I glanced down the long, quiet hallway. The door was closed, no light spilling from underneath. My logical mind was screaming at me to ignore it, to get a cup of coffee and snap out of it. "Rachel, please." I don't know what made me do it. Maybe it was a nurse's instinct to respond to a call for help, even a ghostly one. Maybe I just needed to prove to myself that I was losing my mind. I started walking. My own footsteps were the only sound, echoing on the polished floor. The fluorescent lights overhead seemed to buzz louder, flickering as I passed. I reached the door to 412. My hand went to the handle, and it was cold. So cold. I pushed the door open. The room was dark, but the monitors, which should have been off, cast a faint, eerie glow. The bed was perfectly made with crisp, white sheets. It looked completely normal. Then, the intercom speaker on the wall crackled. No call button pressed, no one at the other end. "Thank you for coming, Rachel." I turned to run, but the door slammed shut behind me. Not just closed, but slammed with a force that shook the frame. I yanked on the handle, but it was stuck fast. Panic started to set in as the temperature in the room plunged. I could see my own breath fogging in the air. And then the heart monitor beside the empty bed beeped. Once. Twice. a slow, steady rhythm as if it was connected to a patient who wasn't there. My eyes were glued to the bed as the pristine white sheets started to move. An indentation appeared, right in the middle, like someone was lying down, their chest rising and falling. The intercom came alive again. But it wasn't just Mr. Hendricks anymore. It was a chorus of voices, all overlapping, all whispering my name. Voices I recognized, patients I had lost over the years. Mrs. Delgado, who died from sepsis. Young Timothy Chen from that horrible car accident. Sharon Beckworth, who coded during a routine procedure. Rachel. Rachel. Why didn't you save us? Rachel. The voices grew louder, more desperate, more accusatory. The room got colder and colder. The indentation in the bed deepened and then, impossibly, the sheets began to pull back, drawn down by invisible hands, revealing nothing but empty space beneath. I finally found my voice and I screamed. I threw my entire body against the door, pounding and kicking, screaming for help. The voices from the speaker became a deafening roar, a choir of the dead demanding answers, asking why I had failed them. And then, as suddenly as it began, it was over. Silence. The room's temperature returned to normal. The door swung open and I fell backward into the hall, gasping for air. Sandra was running towards me, her face a mask of concern. Rachel, what happened? We heard you screaming. I looked back into room 412. The bed was perfect. The monitors were dark. Everything was exactly as it should be. I thought I saw... I couldn't explain it. How could I tell her what I'd just seen? That was the first night. I wish I could say it was the last. But they keep calling me. Almost every shift now, I hear them. Mr. Hendricks and the others. And every time they call, they show me a little more. Every time I learn something new about why they won't let me go. But that is a horror for another part of this story. If you've ever had an experience you can't explain, let me know in the comments below. My name is Dean Hartley, and I've been driving trucks for 19 years. I've crossed this country more times than I can count, hauled everything from furniture to frozen food, and I've seen my share of strange things on the road. You drive long enough at night and you start to notice things that don't quite add up. Shadows that move wrong, exit signs for towns that don't exist when you check your map. Other drivers who seem to be going nowhere, just circling the same stretch of highway forever. But I'd never picked up a hitchhiker. Not once in 19 years. Company policy strictly forbids it, and besides that, I'm not stupid. You hear stories about drivers who pick up the wrong person and end up dead in a ditch somewhere. So I had a rule. Never stop for anyone, no matter how desperate they look. I broke that rule on a Wednesday night in March, and I've regretted it every single day since. I was hauling a load of agricultural equipment from Laramie, Wyoming to Omaha, Nebraska. It was a straight shot down Interstate 80, a route I'd driven hundreds of times before. The weather was clear, traffic was light, and I was making good time. I'd left Laramie around 8 in the evening, planning to drive through the night and arrive in Omaha by early morning. Around midnight, I was somewhere in the middle of nowhere, Nebraska. Nothing but darkness and empty prairie on either side of the highway. My headlights were the only light for miles. I had the radio on, some classic rock station, and I was drinking my third cup of coffee from my thermos. That's when I saw him. He was standing on the shoulder of the highway, right at the edge of where my headlights reached. Just standing there, perfectly still, with his arm raised in the universal gesture for needing a ride. As I got closer, I could see he was wearing clothes that looked wrong somehow. An old-style suit like something from the 70s or 80s. No jacket, just slacks and a button-down shirt. No luggage, no broken-down car nearby. Nothing to explain why he'd be out there in the middle of nowhere. Every instinct I had told me to keep driving. But as I passed him, I caught a glimpse of his face in my side mirror. He looked exhausted, defeated, and there was something about his expression that made me feel genuine pity. Out here, if I didn't stop, he could be walking for hours before another vehicle came by. Maybe days. Against my better judgment, I slowed down and pulled onto the shoulder about 50 yards ahead of where he stood. I watched in my side mirror as he started walking toward my truck. He didn't run, or hurry. He just walked with this slow, measured pace, like he had all the time in the world. When he reached the passenger door, I leaned over and rolled down the window. "Where you headed?" I called out. He looked up at me, and in the dim light from my cab, I got my first good look at his face. He was probably in his 40s with dark hair and a neatly trimmed beard. His eyes were strange, though. They had this intensity to them, like he was looking through me rather than at me. "East," he said simply. His voice was quiet, hoarse, like he hadn't spoken in a while. "I'm going to Omaha. That work for you?" He nodded once. I unlocked the door and he climbed up into the cab. He moved stiffly, like his joints hurt. As soon as he settled into the passenger seat, I noticed the smell. It wasn't body odor exactly, more like old paper and dust, like the smell of an attic that hasn't been opened in years. "Name's Dean," I said, pulling back onto the highway. "Dean Hartley." He didn't respond immediately. He just stared straight ahead through the windshield, his hands folded in his lap. After about 30 seconds of silence, he finally spoke. "I know. That should have been my first warning. I should have pulled over right then and told him to get out. But I told myself he'd probably seen my name on the side of the truck or something. Some independent drivers put their names on their rigs. Maybe he'd noticed when I passed him." "So what were you doing out there in the middle of nowhere?" I asked, trying to make conversation. "Waiting," he said. "Waiting for what?" "For you." The way he said it made my skin crawl. I glanced over at him, trying to figure out if he was joking or trying to be creepy on purpose. But his expression hadn't changed. He was still staring straight ahead with that same blank, intense look. "Look, buddy, if you're trying to weird me out, it's working. I can drop you at the next exit if you'd prefer." "No," he said quietly. "I need to ride with you. All the way." I didn't say anything else. I just focused on driving, trying to ignore the growing sense of unease in my gut. The radio had gone to static at some point, just low white noise filling the cab. I reached over to change the station, but before I could touch the dial, the passenger spoke again. "Don't bother, it won't work while I'm here." I pulled my hand back. "What do you mean it won't work?" "Electronics don't like me much, haven't for a long time." I glanced at my dashboard. Sure enough, my GPS screen was flickering, and my phone, which I kept mounted on the dash, had gone completely black even though it had been at 70% battery when I picked him up. "What the hell is going on?" I asked, my voice rising. "Who are you?" For the first time since getting in the truck, he turned to look at me directly. In the green glow of the dashboard lights, his face looked strange, almost translucent. "Check the glove box," he said. "There's something in there you need to see." "I don't keep anything in the glove box except the registration and insurance." "Check it anyway." I don't know why I listened to him. Honestly, some part of me must have already accepted that this wasn't a normal situation. My hand reached over, almost on its own, and popped open the glove box. I fumbled around inside, past old receipts and a spare pack of smokes. My fingers brushed against something slick and glossy. Something that definitely wasn't mine. I pulled it out. It was an old photograph, the kind with the thick white border they used to print back in the 70s. The image showed a man standing next to a truck, an old Peterbilt, one of those early 80s models. The man in the picture was smiling, wearing a trucker's cap and a plaid shirt. The man in the photo was me. Not just someone who looked like me. It was me. Same face, same build, same crooked nose from a bar fight when I was 25. But the photo, it had to be at least 40 years old. The truck, the clothes, the faded color of the print, everything about it screamed early 80s. "That's not possible," I whispered, my voice barely a croak. I wasn't even born until 1983. "Look closer," the passenger said. His voice was unnervingly calm. I held the photo under the dim glow of the dashboard light. That's when I saw them. Dark stains spattered across my shirt in the picture. Stains that looked an awful lot like blood. And my smile. It wasn't a happy one. It was the kind of strained, empty smile someone gives when they're in shock, when they have no idea what else to do. My gaze shot back to the passenger, and my hands started shaking so violently I almost dropped the photo. "This isn't real," I said, my voice trembling. "None of this is real. I'm hallucinating. That coffee. Someone must have drugged my coffee back at the truck stop." "The photo is real," he said, his tone flat. "The blood on it is real too. That's my blood, Dean. You need to understand what's about to happen." "What are you talking about? What's about to happen?" My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. He slowly reached into his shirt pocket and pulled out a worn leather wallet. He opened it and showed me a driver's license. Even in the dim light, I could read the name clear as day. Dean Michael Hartley. My name. My middle name. Everything was the same. Except for the birth date, 1958. "I'm you," he said quietly, his eyes locking onto mine. Or, more accurately, you're me. A different version. A different loop. It always happens on this highway, always around this time. You pick me up, I show you the photo, and then... He never got to finish. At that exact moment, a blinding glare filled my rearview mirror. Headlights, coming up on us way too fast. Before I could even think to react, before my brain could process what was happening, an earth-shattering impact slammed into the back of my trailer. The world exploded into a symphony of screeching metal and shattering glass. The force sent my truck jackknifing across both lanes of the highway. I fought the wheel, desperately trying to regain control, but it was like wrestling with a giant. Everything became a terrifying blur. The last thing I saw before the cab flipped and the world went black was the passenger's face. He wasn't scared. He was crying. When I woke up, I was on the cold gravel of the highway shoulder. My truck was a mangled wreck, a twisted sculpture of metal scattered across the road. Emergency lights pulsed red and blue against the inky blackness. A paramedic was crouched over me, shining a little light in my eyes. "Sir, can you hear me? Can you tell me your name?" "Dean," I managed to choke out. "Dean Hartley. Was there anyone else? The passenger?" The paramedic gave me a confused look. "Sir, you were alone in the vehicle. There was no passenger." I tried to push myself up, but a bolt of pain shot through my entire body. "No, there was someone else. He was right there in the cab with me." "Sir," he said gently, "we pulled you from the wreckage ourselves. You were the only person in that truck." The passenger seat was completely empty. They loaded me onto a gurney and into the back of an ambulance. As they were closing the doors, I twisted my head to look at my destroyed rig one last time. And that's when I saw it, lying in the grass, about 20 feet from the wreckage. The photograph. It was blood-soaked and torn, but I could still make out the image. Me standing next to that old Peterbilt, wearing that haunted, horrible smile. I was released from the hospital 3 days later. Broken collarbone, a few cracked ribs, and a whole lot of questions nobody could answer. The police report just said it was a hit and run. No other vehicle was found. No witnesses, no camera footage, nothing. But I know the truth. That wasn't some random accident. It was meant to happen. It had happened before, maybe dozens of times, maybe hundreds. Different versions of me, caught in different loops, all ending the exact same way on that same desolate stretch of highway. I don't drive trucks anymore. I can't. Every time I even think about getting behind the wheel of a big rig, I see his face. My face. And I can't help but wonder, if he was me from another timeline, does that mean somewhere out there, right now, there's another version of me about to make the same mistake? Another Dean Hartley driving through the night who's about to pull over for a hitchhiker on a dark Nebraska highway. And if that's true, what happens when all those loops, all those versions of me finally converge? I still have the photograph. I keep it locked away in a safe in my basement. I don't know why. Maybe it's the only proof I have that I'm not crazy, that any of it was real. Sometimes, late at night when the house is quiet, I take it out and stare at it. And I swear, every single time I look, there's a little more blood on my shirt in the picture. One day, I know I'll look at that photo and see myself completely covered in it. And when that day comes, I think I'll finally understand what I was trying to tell me right before the crash. Some roads we travel aren't meant to have an end. Some roads just loop back on themselves, forever trapping us in the same moment, the same mistake, the same horrible realization that we never really had a choice at all. That's my story. That is what happened to me on Interstate 80. So if you're ever driving through Nebraska late at night and you see someone standing on the shoulder of the road in clothes that look about 40 years out of date, for the love of God, don't stop. It might be me. Or it might be you. Thank you for listening to my story. If you enjoy chilling tales like this, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more. Stay safe out there. My name is Julian Reeves, and I made the mistake that every broke graduate student makes at least once. I rented an apartment that was way too cheap without asking why. I should have known better. When something seems too good to be true, it usually is. But I was desperate, and desperation makes you stupid. I'd just started my master's program in environmental science at Patterson University, and I was barely scraping by on my teaching assistant salary. Most apartments near campus were going for $1,200 a month minimum, which was completely out of my budget. I'd been sleeping on a friend's couch for 3 weeks when I saw the listing online. Basement apartment in converted Victorian house. 5 minutes from campus. All utilities included. $400 a month. $400. In a college town where you couldn't find a decent studio for under $1,000. I called the number immediately before anyone else could snap it up. The landlord's name was Mr. Vance. He sounded old on the phone, his voice raspy and tired. He told me the apartment had just become available and that I could come see it that afternoon if I wanted. I agreed immediately. The house was on Maple Street in one of the older neighborhoods about 6 blocks from campus. It was a massive Victorian, probably built sometime in the late 1800s with peeling paint and a sagging front porch. Mr. Vance was waiting for me on the porch when I arrived. He looked even older than he sounded, probably in his late 70s, with thin white hair and liver-spotted hands that shook slightly when he reached out to shake mine. "You must be Julian," he said. "Come on, I'll show you the apartment. Entrance is around back." He led me around the side of the house to a separate door that opened directly into a stairwell leading down. The stairs were steep and narrow, and they creaked with every step. At the bottom was a heavy wooden door with 3 deadbolts. "I know it looks like a lot of locks," Mr. Vance said, fumbling with his keys. "Previous tenant was paranoid about security. I haven't gotten around to replacing them yet." He unlocked all 3 deadbolts and pushed the door open. The apartment was bigger than I expected. There was a main room that served as both living room and bedroom, a small kitchenette in one corner, and a bathroom through a door on the left. The ceilings were low, barely 6.5 feet, and there were no windows except for 2 small ones near the ceiling that looked out at ground level. The walls were painted a dingy beige and the carpet was old and stained in places. But it was $400 a month, and it was available immediately. "I'll take it," I said before Mr. Vance could even finish showing me around. He looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Relief, maybe, or something else. "You sure? You don't want to think about it?" I was sure. "When can I move in?" "Tonight, if you want. I'll draw up a lease. Just need first month's rent and a security deposit." We went back upstairs to his unit on the 2nd floor, where he had me sign a standard lease agreement. I noticed there was a clause about respecting the property's history and acknowledging prior occupancy, but I didn't think much of it at the time. I just wanted a place to live. I moved in that evening with the few belongings I had: a futon, some clothes, my laptop, and boxes of books and research materials. The apartment felt damp and smelled like mildew, but I figured I could air it out. I spent the first night unpacking and trying to make the place feel like home. That's when I heard the first sound. It was around 11 at night. I was lying on my futon scrolling through my phone when I heard a distinct knock coming from inside the wall next to my head. Not like someone knocking on a door, more like someone knocking on the wall from the inside, from within the wall itself. I sat up and looked at the wall. It was solid plaster, painted that same dingy beige. I waited, listening. After about 30 seconds, another knock. Then another. 3 knocks in a row, evenly spaced. I stood up and walked over to the wall, pressing my ear against it. I could hear something. A faint scratching sound, like fingernails on wood. Then, very quietly, I heard what sounded like breathing. Slow, labored breathing. "Hello?" I called out, feeling ridiculous even as I did it. The sound stopped immediately. I waited for several minutes, but nothing else happened. I convinced myself it was just old pipes or the house settling. Victorian houses make weird noises, that's normal. But the knocking came back the next night. And the night after that. Always 3 knocks, always around 11, always from the same spot in the wall. On the 4th night, I found the first message. I'd been studying at my desk, which I'd set up in the corner near the kitchenette. I got up to get a glass of water, and when I came back, there was writing on my notebook. The page I'd been writing on was now covered in cramped, shaky handwriting that definitely wasn't mine. "Get out while you still can." I dropped my glass. It shattered on the floor, water spreading across the old carpet. I grabbed my notebook, staring at the words. The handwriting was messy, almost frantic, like someone had written it in a hurry. But I'd only been gone for maybe 30 seconds. There was no way someone could have come in, written that, and left without me hearing. I checked the door. All 3 deadbolts were still locked from the inside. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on my futon with the lights on, watching the walls, listening for any sound. Around 3 in the morning, I heard the scratching again. This time it was coming from multiple places. The walls, the ceiling, even the floor beneath the carpet. And then I heard the voice. It was barely a whisper coming from the bathroom. A man's voice, young, desperate. "Please, someone, help me." I jumped up and ran to the bathroom door. I threw it open, but the room was empty. The voice was coming from the mirror above the sink. I watched in horror as condensation began forming on the glass, even though I hadn't run any hot water. The condensation formed words. "Trapped. Help me. I'm still here." I backed away from the mirror, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might explode. I ran to the front door, started unlocking the deadbolts with shaking hands. But before I could get the 3rd one unlocked, I heard footsteps behind me. Quick, running footsteps. I spun around. The apartment was empty, but I could still hear the footsteps running from one wall to another, like someone was pacing frantically inside the walls themselves. "Who are you?" I shouted. "What do you want?" The footsteps stopped. For a long moment, there was complete silence. Then, from every wall simultaneously, I heard banging. Dozens of fists pounding against the walls from the inside, a deafening cacophony of desperation and rage. And then, cutting through all of it, I heard the voice again, louder this time, clearer. "You're living in my grave." The banging stopped. The apartment fell silent. I finally got the 3rd deadbolt unlocked and ran out, taking the stairs 2 at a time. I didn't stop running until I was 3 blocks away. Thanks for watching today's story. If this sent a shiver down your spine, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from the shadows. Stay safe out there, and remember to always ask why the rent is so cheap. See you next time. The next morning, I couldn't shake the feeling. I called up 2 of my friends, grabbed a baseball bat for good measure, and we headed back to the apartment. In the bright light of day, with my friends there cracking jokes, the place just looked, well, dingy. A bit damp, a bit sad, but totally normal. They were convinced I was just cracking under the pressure of grad school. "Julian, you need to sleep more," they kept saying. They helped me start packing my things, trying to convince me I'd just had a nightmare. But then, just before we were about to haul the first box out, I saw it. In the corner where my desk used to be, a piece of the old, worn carpet was pulled up slightly. My heart started hammering. I knelt down, pulled the flap back, and there it was. A wooden trapdoor, bolted shut with a heavy, rusty padlock. Just as we were staring at it, a shadow fell over us. I looked up, and Mr. Vance was standing at the top of the stairs, his face unreadable. "I wouldn't open that if I were you," he said, his voice barely a whisper. My fear was instantly replaced by anger. "What's down there?" I demanded, getting to my feet. "What is this place?" He descended the stairs slowly, each step creaking under his weight. He looked even older and more exhausted than I remembered. He sighed, a long, weary sound. "The previous tenant," he began, his voice raspy. "His name was Marcus Chen, a graduate student just like you. He lived here for 6 months and then he disappeared. The police looked everywhere, but they never found a trace." I felt a chill despite the stuffy air. "What does that have to do with anything?" I asked, though I think I already knew. "He's still here," Mr. Vance interrupted, his eyes meeting mine. "In the walls, under the floor. I sealed up that crawl space after the police gave up, but I can still hear him sometimes, moving, calling out my name." He wrung his hands together. I thought if I got a new tenant, a living presence, he might finally move on. Maybe he'd attach himself to someone else instead." The air went out of my lungs. I just stared at him, my friends flanking me, all of us speechless. "You rented me an apartment that you knew was haunted?" I finally managed to choke out. "Not haunted," Mr. Vance corrected, his voice flat. "Occupied. Marcus isn't dead. Not in the way you're thinking. He's stuck, caught somewhere between the walls, between the spaces. And now that you've been here, now that you've heard him, he knows you. He'll follow you." As if on cue, from the wall right beside us we heard it. 3 distinct, deliberate knocks. That was it. I left everything. My futon, my clothes, my textbooks that cost a fortune. I just ran. My friends were right behind me. We didn't stop until we were miles away. The very next day I found a new apartment. It was twice what I could afford, but I didn't care. I would have lived in a cardboard box to get away from that house. For a few weeks, things seemed normal. I tried to forget. I told myself it was a prank, a weird landlord, a series of coincidences. But Mr. Vance was right about one thing. Marcus followed me. It started small. 3 knocks on the wall of my new bedroom at night. A faint scratching sound from under my bed, like a mouse, but not. Then messages started appearing, scrawled in the steam on my bathroom mirror after a shower. "Help me," typed onto my laptop screen when I left it open. "Don't leave me." And then, just one word, over and over. "Please." I was terrified, but I tried to rationalize it. I was stressed, not sleeping. My mind was playing tricks on me. Then came the night that changed everything. About a month after I moved out, I woke up with that feeling you get when you know you're not alone. I opened my eyes, and standing at the foot of my bed was a young man. I knew him instantly from the missing person posters I'd obsessively Googled. Marcus Chen. He was wearing jeans and a university hoodie, just like in the pictures. But something was horribly wrong. He was translucent, shimmering in the moonlight from my window. He was impossibly thin. His skin was ghostly pale. And his eyes were just empty, black voids. "You lived in my space," he whispered, his voice like dry leaves rustling. "You slept where I died. Now we're connected. Do you understand?" I was paralyzed. I tried to scream, to move, but my body wouldn't respond. I was a prisoner in my own bed. "I've been trying to get out for so long," he continued, taking a step closer. "Trapped in the spaces between, in the walls, under the floors, in all the dark places no one ever looks. But now I found a way out. Through you." He reached a shimmering hand toward me. I watched in absolute horror as it passed straight through my chest. The cold was a physical thing, an agony so intense it felt like burning ice, spreading from my heart through every vein in my body. I finally found my voice and screamed, and just like that, he was gone. But he wasn't really gone. I could feel him, a cold spot inside me, a weight, a presence that didn't belong. It was the beginning of the end for me. That was 3 weeks ago. Since then, my life has unraveled. I lose time now, huge chunks of it. I'll be sitting in a lecture, taking notes, and then I'll blink and it's 4 hours later and I'm standing in a park across town with no memory of how I got there. My friends are scared. They tell me I've been acting strangely, saying things I don't remember, having entire conversations with them that are just gone from my mind. They say my eyes look different sometimes, darker. And then there's the mirror. Sometimes, when I look at my reflection, it isn't me looking back. It's Marcus, staring out through my eyes, wearing my face like a mask. Last night was the worst. I woke up and I wasn't in my bed. I was standing in the musty basement of Mr. Vance's house. In front of me was the trap door. The padlock was gone, lying on the dusty floor. The door was wide open, revealing a square of darkness so absolute it felt like it was swallowing the light from the single bare bulb overhead. I don't remember leaving my apartment. I don't remember driving there. But I was holding a flashlight. My hand, shaking uncontrollably, pointed the beam down into the crawlspace. My blood ran cold. The space wasn't empty. It was filled with stuff, personal belongings, piles of clothes, textbooks, laptops, photo albums, belongings from dozens of different people, and on the concrete foundation walls, scratched deep into the stone, were names. So many names. A list of all the previous tenants, all the students who had lived in that apartment over the years, all of them gone. And at the very bottom of the list, freshly scratched and still dusty, I saw two names, Marcus Chen, and right below it, Julian Reeves. I don't know how much time I have left before I become just like Marcus. Before Julian is gone completely, lost in those dark spaces between the walls. I'm telling you this now, recording this while I still can, while I'm still me. I need someone to know what happened here. I need someone to understand. So if you're ever looking for a place to live, and you find an apartment that seems too good to be true, with rent that's just way too cheap, run. Don't even go inside. Because some places don't want tenants. They want replacements. The knocking is getting louder now. It's not in the walls anymore. It's coming from inside my own head. I can hear Marcus whispering. He's telling me it's almost time. Time to go back to the house, back to the basement, back to the crawl space where all the other lost souls are waiting for me. I'm so cold, and I'm so tired of fighting. Maybe it won't be so bad, joining them. At least I won't be alone anymore. At least I'll finally understand. The knocking. It's inside me now. 3 knocks. Over and over. It's almost time. It's almost